Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is my brother Tim Uthman, and Tim has been doing ministry missions for many years, and has done a lot of it in Europe. Has worked in Europe with his lovely wife, two incredible leaders, doing some ministry here in the States as well. Do you mind sharing a little bit of kind of what your ministry maybe has been and what you're up to these days?
Yeah. Well, so when we got married, actually before we got married, my wife felt called to missions with refugees and asylum seekers, people who've been displaced through war, oppression, persecution. And we weren't ready to get married yet, so she left. She took off. She went to Greece for a year and did ministry there. And I figured out while she was gone, I was like, oh man, I missed out. So she came back and we got married, and eventually the Lord called us back into that ministry. So we served in Italy for about 6 years. We served in England, just outside of London, for another 3 years, working with immigrants, migration, forced displacement. And then the Lord moved us back to the States. So we're in Minneapolis right now. She's still working with refugees. She does a lot of training. She does a lot of consulting with groups that work with refugees and asylum seekers. And my role has shifted now. I'm working with a group that does peacemaking, reconciliation work called Pilgrim Center for Reconciliation. It was born out of the post-genocide era in Rwanda, and then has kind of spread through Africa and into the U.S. So that's kind of what I do, is more of the peacemaking, peace-building stuff, but still working with refugees, asylum seekers, displaced people. Yeah.
Beautiful ministry. So I wanted this video to be just some short, maybe nuggets of wisdom or advice that you would give, say, a church team going overseas. Maybe they're going to some of these countries that you've worked in. What is some advice that you would give them as they're going overseas?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is be really sensitive to your own cultural arrogance, if you will. We have a mindset, and I think all cultures do, but we're especially susceptible in the West to this kind of self-perspective of the way I've always done things is the right way to do things. So we come across this cultural arrogance. So real quick story, we moved to Italy, and this wasn't a ministry thing, but we moved into an apartment. We had to furnish the apartment. The water heater went out. And I thought, man, in the US, I would get this, you can get these tankless water heaters that, it'll fit this small space. It'll take care of our apartment. This would be great. And so I couldn't find one in Italy. And I thought, no, this is the best way to do it. So I ordered a tankless water heater from England, and they shipped it down to us in Italy. And I went to install it. And I was in the process of installing it in our apartment. And I realized that the reason they don't do this in Italy is because the power draw for a tankless water, an instant water heater, is so much, it probably would have blown the power to the whole apartment unit. Unfortunately, I realized that before I connected the wires, right? I'm like, oh man, this is like, the amperage on this is just way out of it.
Right.
But the story behind that is just my assumption was, oh, man, these Italians, like, why don't they do it the right way?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Are you guys heading to the elevator tonight?
No.
No, you're not? Okay. I think we might be locking doors soon.
Okay.
So just please connect all you want.
Okay, well, make our way out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But also head out soon.
Okay, that sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, so that sense of I know the right way to do it.
Right.
And I'm kind of telling this entire culture, this entire country,
Yeah.
like, you don't really know, but that plays into ministry roles as well. So there's this sense of going in humbly and recognizing this is the way I've always done it, may not fit this context. So first thing, that's pretty low-hanging fruit there, just to be aware of the cultural strengths of the places you're going to. People that you're going to serve, in whatever way you're serving, have done this for generations. They probably have an idea of why they've done it for generations. So the second thing tied to that is go in with a posture of a listener and a learner.
Yeah.
We've got so much to learn. We are sent to work in other places with an assumption that we have something to bring. Like, I'm going to take this truth to them, I'm going
Right.
to teach them, I'm going to serve them. We come from a power position of, I have something to give. If you enter into that space and say, actually, I've got a whole lot to learn first. I'm going to come into this space and I'm going to sit at the table with you and I'm just going to be quiet and say, help me understand that. Help me understand why the churches in Italy, the Protestant churches, the evangelical churches in Italy, they don't get along. Well, why is that?
Yeah.
You know, and then I hear 4, 5, 6 pastors tell their stories. They start to put together that picture.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So listening first, listen.
Yeah.
And then I guess that leads into my third, and I don't know if this is a nugget of wisdom, but have a long perspective, even if you anticipate being there a short time. Recognize that change, transformation, gospel, the way of Jesus takes time to develop, to grow. And it happens through humility, it happens through sitting quietly at the table, it happens through being the guest, being the invited one,
Right.
accepting hospitality. It doesn't happen overnight. So if you go in thinking, okay, by this time next week or next month, I'm going to be doing these 12 things, you may accomplish some things, but you're probably creating wrinkles that will take years to iron out. And so a bunch of our time in Italy was spent with churches who would repeatedly tell us we were impacted or hurt or even burned by American missionaries who came in, they did things really fast and they left, and now we're still trying to make that work in our context. And that came back to us. So they would say, well, we're not sure we want American missionaries.
Yeah.
We're not even sure we want your help if you're going to come in and create issues. So come in with a long-term perspective,
Right.
play the long game.
Yeah.
We spent our first, of 6 years in Italy, we spent our first probably 3.5 years volunteering at every Italian ministry that would take us.
Yeah.
And we would just go night after night, and people, you know, our supporters, the sending agency back home, our churches were like, well, what are you doing? What kind of programs are you creating? It's like, we're not creating anything.
Yeah.
I'm volunteering there. I'm showing up at the train station there.
Right.
I'm doing that. It's all Italian ministries.
Yeah.
And then 4 years in, we had a vision to start a new project. And the Italian churches kind of gathered around and they talked to each other like, these guys have been here long enough and served that we have an element of trust that we can actually walk with them in this. And we were part of starting that ministry. We left 6 months later, and now it's been almost 12 years since we've been there, and that ministry's still going because the Italian church owned it, not the American missionaries. So anyway, those are just a few thoughts. It's nothing rocket science, right? But it's just about being humble, servant, Jesus followers that are less interested in our own kingdom that we're building than we are in seeing the kingdom being released and recognized and seen in the places we are. So
Beautiful.
yeah,
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
yeah.
There you go. Words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Brother Tim. Appreciate it. And Lord bless you guys. All right.
All right.
Adios.